On March 29th, 2025, we're having a solar eclipse. We got into the influence of that solar eclipse a few days ago on the last new moon that we had, just a couple days ago. And so I wanted to give a little video about the personal effects on individuals' lives who are getting impacted by this eclipse. So this eclipse is falling at 8:59 degrees tropical Aries. If you're using sidereal positions, that means it's going to be happening at right around 15 degrees of sidereal Pisces. So anything that you have in that sign, in that vicinity, close to this eclipse is going to be eclipsed. This eclipse may not be affecting you strongly, or it may be landing right on something. Okay. I consider this a very important eclipse. It's a simple eclipse, but I consider it a very, very important one. To look at what we can expect for this eclipse, we have to go back to the first eclipse in this cycle. The first eclipse of this cycle happened at August 21st, 1664, at 3:49:46. That's Washington, D.C. time. Now, if for those of you who have the Eagle and the Lark, which talks about the effects of eclipses in the context of the Saros cycle, for some reason she calculated the first eclipse in this series incorrectly. The results she gives for this eclipse is violence or severe accidents. Okay. But she actually seems to have calculated the wrong beginning eclipse that she based that on. Okay. In my life, I haven't experienced this eclipse that way. Okay. So what if we count based on the correct day for the first eclipse date? Usually you can count on the interpretations of the Eagle and the Lark. Usually they're pretty good. But in this instance, they are not going to be correct simply because of a calculation error. That book was written at a time before we had, such easy, great software to use, and NASA, didn't have all that availability of Saros cycle information. So anyway, this eclipse, in the first one, you can see here we have the Sun-Moon conjunction. It's sitting with Mercury and Venus. So Mercury and Venus are part of the eclipse. So often you find Mercury as part of the eclipse because it's always so close to the sun. Less often you see Venus there. And it's not often that you see both of them. So in this case, both those planets are getting a major overhaul, basically. Now, since it's a solar eclipse, that means we're finishing a cycle and beginning a new cycle of activity. Okay, that's always the nature of a solar eclipse. Whatever house it lands on, you finish a cycle of behavior, of actions, of living your life, and you're going to start a new cycle of how you're dealing with something. And the thing in question is the house, the planets that the eclipse is going to be landing on. Okay? So it's a whole new cycle. And that new cycle is going to indicate, is going to come with a whole new Venusian approach and a whole new Mercury approach, because how we're using Venus, how we're using Mercury is coming, that cycle's coming to an end and a new cycle is beginning. In the context of where this conjunction and where this eclipse is happening in your charts. Okay. So to start out with Mercury, we do things a certain way. We try things a certain way. We believe in something and we go for it and we use it and we see how it works. Okay. And then we get to a point where we have a conclusion. We come to a conclusion and we say, okay, I'm done trying that. I'm going to try this. So say, for instance, you use New Balance shoes your whole life, and you for a long time of your life, you liked them, you tried them, you felt good in them. But then all of a sudden you decide, I'm going to go try another brand of shoes. And then all of a sudden you find yourself running in Nikes. So you kind of changed what you were working with. That's how Mercury works. So the way you've been trying to use the planet, the house, the way you've been doing things relevant to, the thing that's being eclipsed, now you want to try something different. It's a time of making a big change in how you're trying things. If this falls in your seventh house, you're going to try having relationships in a completely different way. You're like, okay, I've tried that. I've been dating these kinds of people. I'm going to try something different. I'm done with doing it that way. I'm going to do it in a new way. Okay. And then you do your experiments, you're testing and trying and see how far you can get ahead with the new way that you're trying to do things. Okay. And this is going to be specifically directed at the point that's being eclipsed. Okay. Now, Venus is also there. So Venus is what you've committed to. Mercury is what you are trying. If it pans out, you commit to it. That's how it's supposed to work. If it doesn't pan out, you don't commit to it. You might try keeping to get it to work, but you don't commit to it. Venus is when you commit to something because you find it's valuable. This is worth doing. This is worth working with. It's valuable, so I'm going to commit to it. This is how I'm going to do something. And again, that's in the context of where this eclipse falls. If it falls in your 10th house, something with work you're going to become committed to and say, this is, I've been doing it this way, trying it that way, and now I'm going to try it this way and commit to this way. So not only is it a try, it's also a commitment. So this eclipse is about basically making a long-term commitment to try something for a while. Like, okay, I found this is working, I'm committing to it, and I'm going to keep working on it to make it even work better. That's what's happening with this Venus-Mercury conjunction. And where it's influencing you depends on what house it's in. But that's the nature of this eclipse. A whole new cycle of commitment, a whole new cycle of how you're going to try and work and investigate something and use something to see how it works. And that's going to continue. Now, to help with that, we have a Pluto sextile. Pluto over here is at 26 degrees of Gemini, and it is aspecting that Sun, Mercury, and Venus conjunction, basically. So that means Pluto is going to make this a deeper change. There's going to be some fear and trepidation and like, ugh, I don't really know about this qualities. You're going to have to get over some stuff to be able to make this shift. However, sextiles tend to be nice eclipses that always give some surprises. Let me give you an example of the last time this eclipse landed on me. Okay. The last time I had this eclipse was March, mid-Marchish. It happened in 2007. Okay. At that point, I decided to commit to using the tropical zodiac and to just continue the rest of my experiments only with the tropical zodiac. And before that, I had done sidereal. For 2 years before that eclipse, I had tested sidereal and tropical for 2 years extensively, testing everything I knew. And every time I had better results with the tropical. So when this eclipse came along, I finally committed to, I will simply no longer look at sidereal anymore, even though I used it successfully for many years before that, from 1995 to 2007. And from 2005 to 2007, I researched both. So I'm talking over a decade of using sidereal before I did this big 2-year research projects. Okay. But when that eclipse came, I went into a whole new cycle of activity, of commitment. And at that point, I was like, I know sidereal is not going to work for me, and I'm just done with it. And I'm committing to the tropical zodiac. Okay. Shortly after that, I started, and what happened is there was the Pluto Mercury. I had a lot of students. We were all doing sidereal astrology. My livelihood was dependent on my teaching and doing charts with the sidereal zodiac. So the Pluto there was fear and trepidation. I had 3 kids. I had a huge mortgage. And I'm like, gosh, I just can't do sidereal anymore. And as soon as I tell my students this, what am I going to do for money? And I was like, well, I'll just sell stuff on eBay. That's what I decided. That was plan B, right? But like I said, the Pluto sextiling after that shift and change happens, even though it can be scary, can give a nice surprise. And I had a very nice surprise. I had the nice surprise that only about 5% of my students bailed on me. The rest, after listening to my talk on tropical, looked into it, decided I agree, this works, stayed with me. And over the next few months, many people showed up saying, I always wanted to do Vedic astrology, but I just couldn't find this sidereal zodiac working for me. So now that you're teaching with tropical, I'm so glad I can finally dive into this. So I had the pleasant surprise of actually picking up more students, even though I lost about 5% in that first week. Okay. Um, Now, Venus happens to be students. Okay. So that's an example of how that eclipse was affecting in my life. Okay. Now, this year, this eclipse is landing on me again. It's on my sun to the exact degree. It's happening on my birthday. Let's go to this year's chart. Okay. Not that this is about me. I'm just using myself as an example to illustrate the effects of this eclipse. Whatever house this eclipse is falling in, whatever things it's falling in, whatever planets it's with that are part of, whatever planets it's with, whatever those rule in your chart are all going to be impacted. Okay. If your ascendant lord is there, your Makaraka is there, then these changes are going to impact you very strongly in the context of what are you going to try for yourself? How are you going to try to make your life work better? Maybe you're even going to try a new career. What commitments are you making to yourself to be this kind of person who lives this way? Those are the kind of things under question if first house is involved in any way, whatever. Okay. So in this year's eclipse, which is March 29th, 2025 at 6:47:25 a.m., which happens to be my birthday, we have sun and moon at 8:59 of Aries. Okay. My sun is at 8:48 of Aries. So the eclipse happens, about a quarter of a day, a little less than a quarter of a day, 4.5, 5 hours after my solar return starts for the year. With the eclipse, we've got, I'm having a hard time seeing that. Just a sec. I'm going to calculate that chart real quick. March 29. I think it's Mercury with so Mercury's with the eclipse. Okay. I'll go back to that other chart now. It's Donald Trump's chart, just happened to be up. And, but we don't care about that. We're just watching the eclipse. So it's a sun, moon, Mercury conjunction here in Aries. So if Mercury is a critical planet in your chart, whatever planet is being eclipsed, whatever planet's being eclipsed, is whatever Mercury rules is because it is part of the eclipse. That house, that thing will be under this influence in your chart of, all right, I'm going to start a whole new cycle of how I'm working with this, how I'm trying this, how I'm trying to make this part of my life work. Okay. Now, there's Venus is not present. It's right behind the Mercury. It's really, really close. It's actually in a different sign, which means this particular eclipse is going to be more about making changing how you're trying things than actual commitment. It's not as much as a commitment centered one as the original one. We're always going to make a commitment to something new with respect to the thing that this eclipse hits. But it won't be as contractual as a commitment, let's say. It won't be a commitment where we say, I'm never going to go back on this commitment. Okay. So for instance, in 2007, when I made the commitment to the tropical, I knew I would never go back to sidereal. After 2 years of that research, there was no point in me ever to look at a sidereal chart ever again. And I made a full commitment, and it was a very strong commitment. But this eclipse cycle, it's not that level of commitment. It's a commitment, but I don't have to necessarily live by this. I can change my mind. Okay. So if a person got married during this eclipse, they're getting married to try marriage, to try relationship in a different way. But if it doesn't work, they're going to bail out. They're not 100% sure they can, make a blood oath and go, commit to death with this particular eclipse, okay? But it still has the original commitment quality because every eclipse in this cycle will have a commitment cycle. But the investigation quality is stronger because that's the Mercury. I'm going to see how this works. I'm going to try this. And it's a long-term period of trying of 18 years until the next cycle. So whatever this eclipse is hitting on you, however you try to play the game differently with that thing, you're going to be doing it that way for the next 18 years. And you're going to decide that, yeah, based on what's been happening, this is how I have to deal with this. This is how I have to live this. Gives me a better chance for success. That's what Mercury does. He's the gambler that basically says, this gives me the best chance for success, so I'm going to go for it. Venus is the planet that we get to where we say, I know this works. It's not a gamble anymore. Okay? So Venus isn't as strong this time. The Mercury's stronger. All right? So keep that in mind. So it's especially about saying, I'm going to gamble differently. I'm going to try things differently because I think the odds for success will be better when I do it this way. And then you're going to play by those rules and figure out how it happens and watch your life move forward over the next 18 years with that set of rules. And when this eclipse hits again, 18 years later, you're going to go through the same process of what set of rules should I use? Like I decided to drop the sidereal rules and use the tropical rules. Okay? Now, this eclipse, for me, it's really funny. I really had a good laugh at myself, is that over the last several years, I've been researching the Adityas, okay, which is a circle that I've talked about on YouTube of solar gods that are used as symbology for the zodiac signs instead of the zodiac signs. So, for instance, instead of Pisces, we have a solar deity called Data. Okay, and instead of Aries, we have a solar deity called Ariama. And I've been talking about teaching the Adityas for at least 3 years. Like, okay, any minute now, any minute now, any minute now. But life intervened every time, and I was not able to do it. I was not able to finish all my researches I wanted on them. I wasn't able to make the commitment to teaching the Adityas. And boom, all of a sudden this year, it's all coming together. I've been releasing Aditya videos on YouTube and showing how they work. And I'll be starting an Aditya course in the next 6 weeks during this eclipse cycle. And so I'm laughing at myself how here this new eclipse cycle is playing with the very same thing as it was last time with the rules of astrology, where I'm saying, hey, I want to play by Aditya rules. I don't want to just play by Aries, Taurus, Gemini rules. Am I going to commit to Adityas and throw Aries, Taurus, Gemini out? No, because Venus is not part of this. But I'm going to teach the Adityas. I'm going to work with them. I'm going to see other people's feedback on them. I'm going to use them more. And I'm going to have a lot of fun with this new cycle of astrology. Okay, but it's not that I'm never going to use the tropical zodiac again, because it's not where I'm making a full commitment to the Adityas. I'm saying, look, the Adityas are super cool. Let's use them. Let's investigate them. Let's see what they can do. And that's what I'm doing. So this is how we see some links sometimes between eclipse cycles. The link between eclipse cycles are not always so blatantly obvious. Okay? Sometimes it's a very subtle thing because sometimes the shift you make is unconscious and you don't really realize how you're being shifted, okay? Now, this current eclipse has also got a Pluto aspect to the Sun, Mercury, and everything, really. A Pluto sextile again. So there's going to be some pleasant surprises, okay? It's not going to have the degree of fear and trepidation as the cycle generally tends to have, simply because of the fact that Pluto is in a 212 relationship to Saturn and Mercury, okay? So it's not influencing them the same way it is Mercury. It's really all on the Mercury. And Mercury is something we're trying. It's like, let's try a new idea. It's not that scary. That's what's one of the wonderful things about Mercury. He doesn't have courage, What's great about Mercury is his job doesn't require a lot of courage. All he has to go is investigate and report. He doesn't have to commit to anything. He just says, this is what I saw. This is what I noticed. Doesn't take a lot of courage to do that. So Pluto influencing Mercury is not as intense as Venus, which is more intense because with that Venus, you're saying, I'm making a commitment. You're making a decision for a very long period of time. And that takes more courage than just saying, okay, I'm going to go look and this is what I saw. So in whatever area Mercury is landing in your chart and the sun-moon conjunction, this eclipse is landing, any planets that the sun-moon or house cusp that the sun-moon's very close to are going to basically be impacted. You're going to try to play the game with those things differently. It'll be a little scary, but not too bad. And you're going to do it because the way you have been playing the game has been giving results, but not the results you want. And you want to take it up to the next level. You want to play better odds. You want to do it a better way. And this eclipse will help people discover different ways to do it that will seem to be better and which actually are better, which will increase the odds of success. So it's a great eclipse for moving forward because you have new ideas, new ways to make something happen that's important to you or to work with something that's important to you, relevant to where this eclipse position is falling. Okay? Other planets, let's see. Neptune might actually be in that mess. I was running behind today and I forgot to look at everything really clearly before I opened up the video. Yes, Neptune is right on the cusp of the eclipse. You can see it's right at the end of Pisces. It's not in the same sign, so it's not going to be a huge Neptunian eclipse. Okay? It's mostly a Plutonian eclipse, so it's running very true to form of the original eclipse back in 1664. Okay? Pretty simple eclipse. I think anyone who gets hit by this eclipse is going to be pleasantly surprised by things working better as you decide that, okay, I'm not playing by those rules, I'm going to play by these rules. A lot of the things you've been wondering about, things that have been stuck, should start getting unstuck over this eclipse period. Okay? And for some of you, depending what house this falls in, you might decide to try something really radical. You might decide to see what it's like to live as a single person and get divorced. Because you might think my odds for happiness are going to be better as a single person than married. You never know. But you're going to make a decision that your chances are better in this way. You're going to discover things, be able to do things that you weren't able to if you drew it this way. And that can be a pretty intense thing sometime. But generally, it shouldn't be too scary of an eclipse. It should just be, yeah, I want to play by these rules. I don't want to play that game anymore. Okay? Now, the last one of these eclipses was March 18th, 2007, the last time we had this cycle. That one fell at 28 degrees of Pisces, tropically, which would have been about 4 degrees of Pisces sidereally. So you can go back and see if you had anything close to that point around there. And see, reflect on that time, what shifts you made in this context, and then see if those are coming back into your life this time. Okay? And they will, but possibly to a different degree. Okay? All right. So that's it on this eclipse. Like I said, it's a pretty simple one. I hope that helps everyone get through it. I'm actually very excited about this eclipse because the other eclipse I really enjoyed of this cycle, was very scary. But it really was wonderful. And it's just so great to say, okay, I've been doing it this way for a long time. And now I want to do it. I want to try it new in a way that's going to give me more of what I really want and need. And that's a wonderful thing. So we can take a step forward in this eclipse. This eclipse is really about taking a step forward with whatever it is that this eclipse is affecting. Okay? All right. Thank you.